Hey everyone and welcome to our channel. It's this time of the year when we publish the reviews of the best PPM tools available for Jira, and in 2026 Structure remains the most reliable way to visualize and organize your work regardless of your team's size. It hasn't changed much lately, but it's still one of the best tools to build hierarchies and seeing the big picture. It's stable, it works, and it's essential for keeping any project in order. Let's dive in. Before we start setting things up, let's quickly explain what Structure is. Structure helps you to organize your Jira work items in a way that is easier to understand. Jira shows tasks in lists, but it doesn't always show how things fit together. Structure fixes that by letting you arrange Jira work items into your own hierarchies and see them all in one place. When you install Structure, you also install another app called Structure Cross Team PI Planner, but in this video we'll focus only on the Structure app. Also keep in mind that there are actually two versions on the Atlassian marketplace, the basic one that includes the Structure and Structure Cross Team PI Planner, and there's also the advanced version that also includes the Structure Gantt. We will cover Structure Gantt and the Structure PI Planner in one of the next videos. So let's close the Gantt for now and collapse the sidebar. Alright, so I've already created some sample data to create my structure, but I'll walk you through all the steps, how to do it. So let's create a new one. To do that, all you need to do is go to the app side panel and click Create Structure. Now you will see that there are two modes available. The first one is the speed mode and the second one is called power mode. What is the difference between the two? It's the way how you create or generate your hierarchy. So the power mode is more advanced and offers some more options referred to as generators, but in this video we'll focus on the speed mode. So let's continue, and already you'll see a list of all your Jira spaces, or if you're working on an on-premise version and use the older terminology, this would be your Jira projects. So already here you can select multiple Jira projects to create a portfolio. Something that is not really doable in the standard version of Jira, and for that you would require Jira plans. So let's start by creating a small portfolio. I have some sample data. I'll use my mobile app and maybe my Asia market. So let's try to combine these two. Let's hit continue. And in the next step, Structure proposes a basic hierarchy for your projects. Here you can also update the filters. So there are a couple of options. You can decide what work types you want to include. For example, exclude items that are already completed, right? Or you can add components. I won't be doing that. I will just cancel this. And let's have a look at the second part here. This is where you tell Structure how to generate the hierarchy. So in the speed mode, the basic hierarchy is what you really have in Jira, right? So you have your epics and the items that are child issues in relation to the epic, but of course you can create additional levels and you can do it at any time. Structure lets you generate the hierarchy using two options. The first one would be to use a field attribute. So for example, you have a label, you have an assignee, you want to group your work by assignees, by teams, by status, all sorts of different Jira fields. Or alternatively, you can use, let's close this one. Alternatively, you can use a link. This can be a custom link or Jira parent field in the current version, and select what type of work would be nested under the epic in my case. This is a very powerful feature, and creating a parent-child relation is not the only thing that it does. It actually also allows you to create the selected link or the dependency between the two items using drag and drop, which I will show you shortly. So let's start with this basic hierarchy. We will complicate it later. Let's call it my structure. And since you can create multiple structures, you can also tag them with a label. So let's say we'll be using this for tracking, as I've already populated the data, so it's not that I'm starting from scratch. You can also add a description and decide whether you want to share it with users, groups, or space roles. So let's hit create and let's see what structure will do for us. So my structure is ready, and within my project I had plenty of epics. Some of them are already completed, but you can't really see that right now. So let's start with adjusting this view. We want to have a little bit more information, as for now we only see the summary, the key, and the progress, right? We can expand our epics. They consist of features mostly, but I think I also have some other issue types, but we will get to that. All right, so now we have our list. The first thing that you can do here is to navigate to the top right corner of the screen where you see this small plus button that allows you to add columns, right? So let's say we want to add the status field first. Let's try to get as much out of this data as possible. So we want to see what is the actual status of the work item. And already I see here that some of the items are completed, some are in progress, and some are in to-do status. If you look at the progress field, whenever a task is completed, the progress is set to 100%. So this is something that structure can do for you, update the progress of the work item to 100% whenever the work item is resolved. So that's pretty cool, but there's plenty more. So let's keep adding the fields. Let's add the assignee field. And right now I'm adding native Jira fields, but there are more, so we will get to that. Let's also add some time tracking fields. Time tracking consists of 3 fields: original estimate, remaining estimate, and time spent. So let's add the remaining estimate as well as time spent. Here there are other time-related fields such as progress by time tracking, which I am already using, but we'll check that in a second. There are also the formula fields that calculate the field value based on different criteria. So we have time since last update as an example, time to resolve, total work ratio. In general, the formula fields can do almost anything you want, right? So these are calculations just like in Excel within your Jira. And one of the common use cases is, for example, you have a filter in your Jira that you use to check if there are empty fields, such as the field lacks an estimate. The issue is not assigned to anyone. This is something that you can show in a column instead of creating a filter and browsing through the list of issues or creating a dedicated dashboard for that. But there are also calculated fields such as the time to resolve, right? Or due in. So we will get to that. Let's add the time spent field as well. And here you'll see that I do have some estimates, and whenever I have the estimates, the progress is calculated based on these estimates, right? So in this particular feature, I have a 1 week original estimate, 2 days remaining, and time spent is 3 days. So in other words, 3 days out of 1 week is 60%. Well, when I hover over the progress bar, I can see it, but maybe I would like to also see it not in form of a progress bar. So let's try to do that as well. Let's add the progress field. There are different ways to measure progress, including progress by status, by story points, status and story points, or time tracking. So let's add the time tracking one more time. And when you click on the header, you'll have some additional field options, including sorting, copying the values to a Jira field, as well as editing the columns. So here we can select a show percentage. You also see here that I have the apply resolution checked. That is why whenever I change the status to done, it will update the progress to 100%. So not all organizations log work, and in that case that would be the way to go. And there are some additional options such as ignore the parent work item progress, right? So when you start planning on a high level first, you add the estimates for these epics, but then you decompose the epics into features, stories, and so on. You don't really need this initial estimate anymore. You will need to compare your high level estimates with the actuals, but for the progress calculation, you will not need that value anymore. So you can ignore the parent work item progress using this checkbox right here. So we just created another progress indication here, this time without the progress bar. So you can add the same field multiple times. That is also really great. And you can add multiple other fields. So let's say we want to add some formulas. Let's say we would like to see the, let's go with due in. So this is an example of a formula field that actually looks at the current date and compares it to the due date. So whenever we are past the due date, you'll see that it is overdue. Let's add the due date field as well. So whenever the due date is later than the current date, then you'll see the day count or the time until the due date. All right, so far so good. We have quite a lot of information right now, but I still see a lot of fields missing here. I don't see any rollups, so let's try to fix that. These fields are inline editable, so you can just double click to set the estimates. So let's add some estimates, right? Let's add some 1 week of work. When I do that, Jira will populate the remaining estimate automatically for me. Let's add 3 days here, but I still don't see what is the total for this particular epic. So to fix that, all you need to do is click again on the column header, edit the column, and in case of the time tracking fields, you'll have an option to sum all the sub items. When you select this, 2 additional options will appear that are exclude duplicates. So it might happen that you have the same issue showing in your hierarchy multiple times because, for example, some work contributes to multiple projects. That's a common scenario. So you don't really want to count it multiple times, but you want to show it and track the status of that work in your structure. And there's also the exclude filtered items option, something that I don't see that often. And I have to admit that it's quite useful. So instead of modifying your hierarchy, you can simply enable it. And whenever you apply a filter, it will also update the rollups, right? So for example, within that epic, if I apply a filter, I want to see how much work is in progress status. So I would add a filter, show me issues in progress. And at the top here, this rollup will be also updated. Otherwise, it will show you the actual sum of all the issues as they are showing now, right? So there will be no difference. All right, so let's do the same for the remaining. And let's do the same for the time spent also, although I don't have any logged work here, but we can fix that. So let's log some work. When it comes to logging work, you won't be able to do that using the inline editing. So just click on the clickable summary and use the Jira edit screen to log work. Right, so let's log some work here. And let's say I underestimated the next task here and I logged more work, not this one, and I logged more work than initially estimated. So let's log 5 days. Now this is all great, but I would also like to see which tasks I have actually under or overestimated. So for that purpose, you can add the work ratio field. Work ratio compares the initial estimate versus the logged work. So in my case, when the logged work is 1 week, it's 50% out of 2 weeks. When it's 1 week out of 3 days, it means that we have underestimated this issue. So another quite important metric that you can use to check whether your work is on track and hence your timeline is on track, because if you have underestimated, that means that your project might take longer than you initially planned. All right, so far so good. We have quite a lot of information here. Of course, you can create your custom views, custom column views here and save them. So just above the add new button, you'll have the predefined views that includes the basic view, planning view. So probably we'll have some other fields here, fixed version, due date, right, remaining. But what is important is that you can save your own views and show as much information as you need about your project. Now let's try to modify this hierarchy slightly. So let's get back to our basic view where we had more data, and let's try to roll it up to a level above the epic. There are a couple of ways to do that. One way would be to group by. Whenever you group, you're actually grouping using a Jira field, right? So this includes the project. If I want to add a level above the epic, and in my case it's just the project, so I can group by the project, and structure immediately added this project item at the very top. So right now you'll see that all my work rolls up to the project level. All right, so now that we covered the hierarchy, let's have a look at the remaining options here. We already talked about the filters and grouping, talked about the views, but there's also the split screen option. And this is something very cool. It actually allows you to work with two structures simultaneously. These do not have to be the same structures, but if you want to organize your list of work items in the backlog, organize it into components, assign it to versions, assign it to sprints, all you really need to do is just enable the split screen and drag and drop. Now in Jira, to connect the issue, I would have to open the item, click add linked work items, select the link type and find it on the list or enter the name. With structure, it's just a simple drag and drop, but before I do that, I would need to create additional level in that hierarchy, and for that purpose, I will use a dedicated link, not child issues. Although you can select multiple links here, I have a dedicated link is mitigated by, so I will link it to the mitigation means, and you can leave that child issue also enabled. Now you will also need to select the work types. So in my case, I will select a task. So let's say I have some mitigation means that I want to link to a piece of work in my project. All I really need to do is to use drag and drop. And whenever I do that, such a link will be automatically created and the issue will be assigned to the correct epic, and you'll see that the link in my case is mitigated by or mitigates risks is here already. So this is something that I have to admit I really like using drag and drop. You can organize your work really quick. You can compare two different structures, apply different filters, but the best thing is still, using drag and drop, and this really allows you to work with long list of tasks and saves a ton of time. And by the way, if you want to learn more about working with the Structure app, Structure and the Structure Gantt app, we do have a free training, so you will find a link in the description. All right, let's close this for now. Let's go back to our structure. We've created a report for each of our spaces. Now let's have a look at the formula fields. These are not that straightforward. It requires some coding knowledge. There are some formula examples in the documentation that you can apply. So for example, again, if we look at the due date, and we can use a formula to show us whether the due date is approaching, where it's so you can customize the existing ones. I will set it as markdown. In that case, this formula fields not only shows me that task is overdue, but it also shows me whether everything is on track or the due date is approaching. So that's one example. You can also change the color coding on your fields, something that I also like. So for example, change the format of the text based on the status category. So this way, based on the status of the epic, I can also change the color coding of the actual text, right? So green when it's done, in progress orange, and so on and so forth. So when it comes to working with formula, of course, the only thing that limits you is how to code it, because there are almost unlimited possibilities. Also, if you don't know how to write such a formula, you can use an AI assistant that is available as a separate app. So there is one more thing I wanted to show you as we are using the speed mode. Let's have a look at the power mode. So let's create a new structure, use the power mode this time. When power mode is enabled, you will see more options. So I will start with a flex item. A flex item is, think of it as a issue that is not an actual Jira issue. So we will use this flex item to group our projects or spaces into a portfolio. These issues do not exist in Jira. They will be only visible in structure. So let's create a portfolio. Let's hit create. And whenever the power mode is enabled, you'll see this show hide generators button. I haven't really used any generators, so let's start adding them now. There are a couple of options to pick from. You have some presets. Let's use the preset and select the projects or the spaces just as before. So let's use our mobile app and let's add another one, for example, legal and compliance. Let's hit create. Here you'll need to decide where to place the generators. So we'll place it level below. Level below because we already have a portfolio that will nest all these three different spaces. So as you can see already, the progress rolls up to the portfolio level, and that's great. There are other generators here as well, including inserts, so you can automatically insert items to your structure using projects, types and statuses, so something similar to what we've seen earlier. Other options of course include JQL queries, so you can create a filter here and that will automatically pull in data whenever work items match that filter. And then there is also the Agile board, which is actually also a filter, right? So there are some additional options here, such as extending the structure by additional criteria based on parent field or linked items. So for example, we want to pull in all the mitigation means that we linked using the mitigated by link type, or the blockers or any other relate to cloned type of link. There are also filters here. Filters, like in the previous example, it works in the same way. So you can filter the existing structure to focus on specific issue types or specific labels or statuses, and you can group and sort by different fields, right? So just as we've grouped by assignee, by status, all this is possible. So let's try to recreate the hierarchy that we created earlier. We will group using a field. So let's select the assignee field, assignee, and we want to group on the level 2. So we have level 1 and level 2 within our hierarchy. All right, I think we covered almost everything here. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, drop us a comment, subscribe to our channel for more videos, and check out other videos if you want to learn more about project and portfolio management using Jira. And if you want Jira to work the way your teams actually operate, not the way the default setup forces you to, this is where we come in. At Genius Gecko, we help companies simplify their Jira environment. Whether you're just starting your journey and looking for the best PPM tools for your organization, or you need a clearer hierarchy, better reporting, or full redesign of how your teams plan and track work, our experts can guide you from confusion to clarity. Check out the link in the description and schedule a free consultation call with one of our experts. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.